Hello, Dr. Arun.
Hello,
Welcome.
how are you? Can you hear me?
I'm doing well. Yes. I'm able to hear you.
Okay.
So let me start the session with a brief introduction.
Yeah, can I try the uploading of the slides here, right? If I can.
I believe you can share the screen. Uh, you can share the screen at the time of sharing the slides. Is that fine?
Okay.
Okay. So welcome all. Welcome to another exciting episode of India's largest metabolic health conference 2025, where we explore various health topics that not only impact our lives but can transform them for the better. I am your host Prasanna, a member and a certified metabolic health coach from DLife.in, India's first and only award-winning low-carb platform. DLife was founded in 2014 by Anup Singh, a silver medalist from IIT Roorkee and the recipient of Icons of India award. Anup is the pioneer of the low carb movement in India with his path breaking protocol of 100 grams of carbs per day maximum, given by him in 2012, that made LCHF possible for type 2 diabetes sufferers and also for Indian vegetarians as well. In 2021, DLife launched its diploma course, which is the only course approved under NSDC partner, the Government of India, in this segment, and the only course with its global biggest 144-hour CPD rate. Anup Singh, along with Shashikant Iyengar, is the organizer of this metabolic health conference. Today, we have our special guest, Dr. Arun Gupta. Dr. Arun Gupta is a senior pediatrician, founded the Breastfeeding Promotion Network of India, BPNI, in 1991. Over nearly 32 years, BPNI has played key role in strengthening national policies to promote, protect, and support breastfeeding, nutrition advocacy in public interest NAPI, a national think tank, and he's a former member of PM's Council of India's Nutrition Challenges. He has been working on issues related to ultra-processed food products, especially its marketing and food labeling. He has worked as an advisor to several governments, including Vietnam, Bhutan, Maldives. In past 30 years, he has been invited to almost all states of India to take part in policy discussions on public health and nutrition. He has worked significantly on health systems, legal frameworks, public policy, and with an extra focus on child health, nutrition, and governance and conflict of interest in the space of food. Welcome to this conference, Doctor, and thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very pleased to be here. Yeah.
So let me open to set the stage. So there is a. Can you please explain what exactly constitutes ultra processed foods and how they differ from minimally processed or whole foods? And because to a common man, whenever there is a packaged food, uh, the usual notion is everything is food. It's all been vetted, and if it's available as food, whether it is packaged or not, it's food. So please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Prasanna, for having me here. And let me start answering your question number one, which is regarding what are ultra-processed foods. So let me give a brief background to it, to arrive at this definition. So first of all, we used to talk about nutrient-based approach to our health, and whether caution or no caution, less or more. So we were very restricted to a particular nutrient or something, which slowly shifted to dietary patterns that like Mediterranean diet or this, and for example. However, the degree of processing of the food, as you mentioned in your packaged products, this element of formulation, industrial formulation and processing was missing in the whole domain of discussion in this. And till 2009, when Brazilian scientists, the University of Sao Paulo, they found that when they found that the overall consumption of sugar in the country is likely going down, but the disease and the health risks going up. So that's when they started analyzing and they coined this definition called NOVA classification of food.
Mhm.
That's where the term ultra processed food comes. So I'll give you an example that when we have real food with us, so that's within the NOVA classification, it's called as, so either it's called as unprocessed or minimally processed foods. For example, if we have rice, pulses, eggs, meat, milk, vegetables, fruits, they may be in any form, which could be, they could be available as fresh, dried, grounded, chilled, frozen, but they're real foods. They are available as such. So they will be in the group one called minimally processed or unprocessed. So the same thing, but they are slightly modified in their processing part, like we make yogurt from our milk. We curdle it and it's ready.
Yeah.
Similarly, I'll give you the example of, say, let me tell you first the next. The NOVA classification 2 is culinary ingredients. So from these foods, we extract like salt, sugar, oil, all that products which are used to prepare our meals, to make them delicious according to our culture, taste. So those are culinary ingredients. They are used for, making tasty and other things. The third is processed food. Now here the word process starts. But this is still not the industrial processing. It's like you preserve them. You use salt or you use sugar or you use cans to preserve these foods, fruits, or even things which we could make at home. Like, say, for example, you prepare a vegetable soup at home, right? A soup, right? And then you can prepare a bread at home, the freshly prepared bread. You can make chapati from the wheat, or you can even prepare traditional available in the market. The breads people can make at home. So, or you have dried fruits, or you might sugarcoat them. You have so these are the foods. Again, the real foods are available. You can still see them, the food element in it, but they might have a higher degree of salt or sugar depending upon the preservative used and what amount you take. For example, you have a canned, say, sugary canned fruit like pineapple, right? You take, but real fruit is available in it, but it may be full of sugar. One has to be careful what amount of sugar goes in there. It is still not ultra processed. So now comes the fourth category, which is ultra processed food, which is in the limelight for research as well as documentation ever since 2009 and 10. The whole world has been doing research on it, which are intense industrial processing is done, whether it is chemical or physical or even biological processing. It actually leads to use of industrial substances also, which we normally don't use in our kitchen. For example, um, maltodextrin or modified starches or cosmetic additives like dyes, like colors, like flavors, like emulsifiers, like stabilizers, you name it, acidity regulators, many of them. One can count in hundreds. But these are chemical additives added to the real foods when they are like their food matrix is now broken. Food matrix is broken. For example, you take the real grain and you rip off the fiber from it. You make it refine and then you add on other things into it. You could heat it, intense heat, convert it into a mold. You can then prepare, for example, from corn, you can start doing the processing, which would lead ultimately to a dough in which you add on the flavors and colors, and then you process into chips. And those chips are now, sprayed with the colors and flavors and salt and chilies, whatever, and then they are packed. Most likely, if the food comes in a plastic wrapped things which you can't change without opening them, the content you can't change without, called pre-packaged food products, are almost always ultra processed.
Okay.
So that's where I think the now coming back to the soup. Now the soup could be prepared at home with use of culinary ingredients. It's unprocessed, minimally processed. It's processed up to the level of process. It doesn't. The moment it is now industrially processed, it could be a powdered available. So a soup is available as a ultra processed soup, which is a powder. You have to mix it. So similarly, you can apply the same principle to, say, for example, biscuits. You can prepare those biscuits in a home or in a very local bakery where you only add 2 or 3 things, but you don't industrially process them. Similarly, on a cake or on a bread, which could be industrially processed bread, use of emulsifiers and other things and substitutes, and a bread prepared at home. So this is how we differentiate the ultra processed food from real foods, and we start calling them as food products. So that is the difference. The first 3 categories, they are foods. This category is a food product. It's not a.
Okay. So the natural question is,
Yeah.
what's wrong with it? That's actually this is something which my friends ask. So this is the usual, the day-to-day Janata ask, right? What's wrong with it? Everything is science. We are accepting whatever comes out as uh, we are accepting our automobiles. There is a lot of internet and a lot of positive results which we have gotten, and the food revolution. Um, but what is the problem is the question that people ask.
Right. The one of the key questions, which is a very good question you have asked right now, is this: that I mean, there is I'll in generally answer that since 2010, there's a lot of research going on in the world, which has proved beyond doubt that increasing consumption beyond 10% is called high intake of ultra processed foods is associated with almost 32 last BMJ published a comprehensive meta-analysis from worldwide studies, and associated links were found with 32 diseases. To be common, I would say that the obesity is one of the key element here, where you tend to overconsume these foods because they are addictive in nature. They are aggressively marketed. That's another characterization of these products. So they are not just like, you don't market foods which are whole foods. Very rarely you will find an advertisement of milk or nuts, for example. But every day in and day out, you will find, the cold drinks, the chips, the chocolates, the noodles and stuff which are ultra processed is day in, day out. So that also pushes you to consume more and eat more. So that's where the risks start. One of the key study which was done in United States, they found that in 14 days, an average adult gained about 900 grams in 14 days if they were on a diet rich in ultra processed foods versus the diet of minimally processed foods. So that is one, and there are a couple of studies after that in Japan, and there's small samples, but they prove the beyond point in randomized control way. Most of the other studies have shown the associations. There are very strong associations found, which I'll show you in the couple of slides here. So this is a slide which shows the consumption, which has been rapidly rising in India by 13.3% annual cumulative growth in India of ultra processed foods that the WHO study showed. But we still don't have a data of our consumption of the proportion of the energy which we consume every day. So this is the data available published from the BMJ in terms of US, Canada, Sweden, all these countries like uh, Germany and Netherlands, most of the developed world, so-called developed world, has gone beyond 30, 35%, even 50%, nearing 50% of consumption is due to ultra-processed foods. But it is possible that there are countries who are still maintaining below 20%, and there is a last country in here is Romania and Colombia, with around 15 to 16%. But India is still, we do not know the exact, but it is between somewhere in 10 and 15%, and is very sharply rising. Right. Now coming to the adverse health outcomes, which I'll also here only explain how it happens. So these are on the top, you see the ultra processed food products on the top, which I gave you the examples. So which are now how they lead on to. So if one is the risk of consuming higher amounts, which I said, so which contains, most of these products are almost always high in salt, sugar, fats, according to the WHO standards or standards given in other countries which have done regulations. Like whole of Latin America, I would say, qualifies for this. Now, then the second element is degree of food processing, and then this whole changes into the food system in the food matrix and the contaminants from processing, which I mentioned, the contaminants in terms of, overheating produces things like furans, acrylamide, and acrolein and other stuff, and addition of emulsifiers and stabilizers, etc. Formulation of attractive and profitable products with long shelf lives. So here comes the food packaging, which brings in plastic and phthalates with it, and the food additives and other industrial elements, they all have contributed to. So all of these combined, including increased eating rate, contributes to overall inflammatory response in the body through change of the gut microbiome, changes in the lipid profiles. So dysglycemia or oxidative stress and weight gain, as earlier said, which also has, formally it leads to other diseases like diabetes and cancer and other heart diseases. They're all linked to each other. So insulin resistance is one of the commonest factors here, which I'm sure Metabolic Health Conference has discussed a lot about. So all this increases the cardiometabolic risk to the body. So this whole overconsumption here leads to the effect of areas of heart, liver, gut, and they are the reason for these problems. So last slide from this part. This BMJ also did the analysis of the type of risks from quoting different studies. So highest consumption was lowest exposure to these. Type 2 diabetes, 40% higher risk. Cardiovascular events, 35%. Hypertension, 23%. All-cause mortality, 29%. Abdominal obesity, 41%. 36% overweight, and obesity, 55% higher risk. Metabolic syndrome, 81% higher odds. And cardiovascular mortality, 50% higher risk. Cardiac mortality, 66% higher risk. So this in nutshell shows that there is a risk associated, which is associated with the increased consumption. So we need to understand that it's not just, okay, once in a month I took a piece of biscuit or a chip, it's not going to immediately harm. There are no known studies of this nature, but apparently from these studies it is found lower consumption, less than 3 or 4% of your dietary pattern, and more than 10% of your diet, 9 to 10% of your diet actually has associated risks, which start increasing. In one of the study, I remember, they studied that 10% increase in ultra-processed food consumption increases the type 2 diabetes risk by 15%. So they were only focusing on the diabetes.
The root cause is one of the root causes is the ultra processed foods.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll deal with the other two slides
Yeah.
later. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we know
Yeah.
the data clearly shows UPF is detrimental to health.
Yes.
Ultra processed food, it is better to have whole foods.
Mhm.
However, India is right now. I'll just continue with that question.
Sure,
So
sure.
India is a very young population. What I mean is the demography of people who are between 25 to 45, who is productive, who goes out and does things. It's very high right now in India, and with that, and with the combination of ultra processed food rising, we see a lot of problems that are coming in, which you have clearly shown. The data also shows that. Why is it still proliferating? Why is it still, and what are some of the levers that we can use to make sure we go on a right path? And yes, I'll ask my next question later on. Please go ahead.
So here your question is why it is increasing, right?
Why it
So,
is increasing and why are we, or what can we do? What? Yeah, it's a mixture of those.
okay. The major reason, according to our analysis, we have been doing it last 4-5 years, is the analysis of the labels and the advertisement portfolio of different products and companies in India, and different parts of the media, whether it's social media, television, print media. This is something, and also linked to celebrity endorsement of these products. So one line answer of this is that this aggressive marketing, which also includes like going to schools, offering sponsorship to schools, giving prizes to health workers, or motivating health workers to keep them calm and quiet, not to speak about it. And all this is a part of the marketing, other than the advertisement part. So other marketing things are also involved in it, so especially the schools. The companies have been kind to the school sponsorships, and with a motive which is very clear. For example, if Coca-Cola sponsors a school education program, I'm sure Coca-Cola has nothing to do with your education. So they have only one thing to do, is their brand, and their consumption should go up. So, and coupled with the aggressive marketing on every channel, on every newspaper, on every magazine, or all that actually pushes the consumption of these products, which is slowly rising. And they are projected as food. They are projected as healthy. They are projected as, something emotionally charging, happiness. They are projected as foods which give you satisfaction. So it's like I was reading this morning that Nestle considers these packaged foods are, the chief says, they're very, very important for the mankind. Now I don't understand what is the importance of this. Of course, people do get empty calories by these, and which probably is linked to the harmful impact of it. Yeah.
Association of that particular food with a particular positive feeling and reinforcing it. Would you say that?
Yeah, yeah. Different products have used different ways. For example, using parental consent to it. An advertisement, you will see parent and a child both playing, and then suddenly they pick up a industrial juice and start drinking, or chocolate or biscuit. It's something of that nature, that as if the parents do agree to it, right? Similarly, the replacement of your traditional diets.
Mm.
Noodles have been replacing chapatis, and then biscuits have been projected to replace chapatis by leading actors of the country. So that's where when you actually pose that your food is as good as your real food, you add convenience to it. You don't have to cook. You buy and eat it. People probably do not realize, probably they're not even aware of, that this is not real food, this is empty calories or salt or fat in different ways, so which goes in. So this whole replacement of traditional diets by the aggression is the cause.
I remember one thing in my school days. There was a promotion, as you said, in our school with a instant noodle packet.
Mhm.
And my grandmother at the time very clearly stated, don't bring it inside the house.
Yeah.
But being a kid at that time, I wanted it, but there was heavy duty resistance to it from the elders. And so, why I'm saying this is there is a top down approach as a policy from the government, we can do something. From the grassroots level, from individual, preserving the local foods, preserving the ancestral food habits, and nurturing that culture from grassroots level is one way, as I have. But right now, I'm seeing that is slowly waning away. Why are these ads so persistent? And what are some of the mechanisms which we can create structures which counter these? Ones from policy level, from grassroots level, from individual level.
Mm.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, the ads are persistent because the aim and objective of the company is to make money. Right. They invest in the advertisements. So each advertisement brings them revenue. So the
Okay.
expenditure is not just for you to only take it. The expenditure is meant to be because the stated objective of any corporation which makes, so there are a few corporations in the country large enough, and I would say the world, which actually make most of the ultra processed foods. So the smaller players are not even significant. So they use cheap ingredients. They buy in them in bulk, produce the cheap food and food products, and they market them. So the reason they market is that they want to make money. That's the point. They are not concerned about your health.
Understood.
So how do you stop it? Because it is seen as a trade barrier if you make a law to ban the advertisement, right? Another country might say if a company comes from USA and India bans, it will
Yeah.
be it will be projected as a trade barrier. So it's a trade takes over health. Secondly, there is an argument of the industry that we produce jobs, right? So I don't know whether the production of that number of jobs is equal to the health risks being caused to the population where that material is being sold. So one has to calculate that kind of health efficiency of production linked disease as well as production linked jobs. So in terms of overall healthcare system, I am sure we spend a lot on treating these diseases, right? If we can minimize them, our healthcare burden will go down. So whatever the economy we are thinking that we will gain from some jobs, I think we can save a lot from by not promoting it. So the real value in stopping these would lie in two areas of policy, rather three. One is that you have to have a packet of the product. In front of it, it's mostly filled with claims, whether they are healthy or you have a real fruit, which is not real. In the product itself, the fruit is not real, but on the top, you will see the real fruit, right? So mangoes or oranges or lychees, they are like yesterday there was a Amul True ad of a drink, 150 ml giving 24 grams of sugar, and the full page ad on the Times of India showed that this is something which I'll show you if I can, if it's here. I'll just give me a second. I'll show you. Now, this is the full page ad of a chocolate yesterday and today. And here is a full page ad of Amul True in different.
Yeah, it's upside down. I think he will be joining back.
There's some signal disturbance.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, you're back.
Sorry, there's sudden drop of internet here at our home,
Okay.
and I don't know what happened, but it just dropped in
That
the.
okay.
Yeah.
Understood. So, Dr.
I
Arun,
was saying,
we were
yeah,
yeah.
just stopping these ads and putting a front of the pack label with a warning that it is a high sugar product or high salt or high fat product. These are two policy requirements. And the third one would be putting a higher tax slab to these. On the individual level, I would say that the person, till we get such legislations, should have a habit of buying a product, checking the back of the pack with the nutrient information. The back of the pack nutrient information gives you information per 100 grams. If the sugar is more than 10%, or saturated fat is more than 10%, or if it is a sodium is more than 1 milligram per calorie in that product, it's better to avoid it for an individual consumption, because it is considered high according to the health standards as defined by the, as I said, WHO, whole of South America and several other countries like Brazil, Canada, Israel, and many countries are joining in this to draw their own nutrient profiles. Yeah.
Okay. And right now, there is a lot of misinformation spread by the food industry to downplay the risks of UPFs, right? Ultra processed foods. What are some of the biggest lies that and misleading narratives that the public should be aware of, and how have they influenced the public health policies and dietary guidelines in favor of ultra processed foods?
No, this is a very well-known fact that the industry, food industry all over the world, they try to lobby with the government policies, and they try to get on of a stakeholder meeting or part of a panel or something where they put their views. So this happens at the global level, at the UN, at WHO, at the national level, at the government level, food safety authority meetings. Very recently, a new committee has been constituted under the food processing ministry, where many of the industry associations are part of the committee to look into the misleading advertisements. So how can a regulator sit with a to be regulated entity to make a policy? So that's a flawed concept by itself. So the major thrust of the industry lies in not only lying, but in also interfering, not to allow the policy development. For example, the front of the pack policy in India is actually in limbo for 12 years. 12 years, the government has not been able to make a policy. And it was in the New York Times, in several Indian papers, where they found that how people belonging to food industry sneak into the panels and they interfere and they do not allow the policy to be made. So that's one. Second is that they challenge the definitions of ultra processed food, for example, in broad sense. They'll say, how can you say a soup is ultra processed? So that's why I gave the example of a soup. So soup can be both ultra processed as well as unprocessed or minimally processed. Similarly, a biscuit or a bread. So we are not saying that homemade biscuit may be counted in a ultra processed food, where how much sugar you add or whatever wheat you add or not. So it's all your choice, and you eat occasionally and you're not governed by the advertisements. Similarly, for example, in India, sweet business is a very common business, right? Whether it's a mithai or they do not go to the newspapers or they do not go to television. Okay, you eat my barfi or you eat my samosa or you eat my. So people sometimes feel good about it to munch on the traditional part. I say that doesn't require regulation, but education to people that what is high food, high fat, high salt, high is required, and also an education that the risks of these are these. Currently, Government of India is doing a Eat Right movement, which says thoda kam khaiye, eat less. And there is another people, either they say less salt. Some people are very good at saying, and people are understanding also, eat less sugar, fine. All that is the consumption of the prepackaged ultra processed. It will be hard to reduce the overall intake of these elements, which are harmful to the body. So attack both sides. It requires information as well as it requires information on the risks of consuming more.
Okay. And so in order to feed a huge population and also for children, there is a growing proliferation of ultra processed food in children. One of the arguments which comes up is it gets piggybacked on scientific advancement, right? And it's basically getting saying that scientific advancements in various fields are there. Food also is we have to accept some of the scientific advancements in the food, and on top of that, UPF gets right, and in terms of childhood nutrition
Oh, yeah,
as well.
I get you.
What are your thoughts on this? So, in order to
Yeah,
feed a huge population, we need
I
to
get
get
your
into
point.
UPF.
I get your point that the packaged food and the supply system and all that improves in that sense. But I'm still contesting it fundamentally here. Since this is not food. So firstly, there is no scientific advancement in the food. It's only some technological advancement to make a food product. So one has to be very clear about it. What exactly are we advancing to? So that secondly, why can't the industry rely on minimally processed food and market it and make money also? Why are they so bent? Because the shelf life is big, higher, years of shelf life, which allows. It's a minimally processed in the unprocessed category. Shelf life is small, is short, not small. And trading becomes a difficulty for the industry. So, but it is good for the local economies. So it will be like, for example, in India, we have more than 750 districts. So one can say every district has own production and supply thing. So if you have to give a serious thought, the way Senator Kennedy is trying to disrupt the system in US, one has to sit down, what is gone wrong somewhere, rather than just compromising everything. So 50 years back, people did not eat much of ultra processed, but they were living. Why the disease epidemic has progressed in last 50, 60 years? One has to study this relationship before getting on to this area that we have to feed large population. Large population cannot be fed on ultra processed food products. In any case, you see the US population and UK population and others which are reeling with bad epidemics of non-communicable disease. And India is reeling with a bad non-communicable disease epidemic, even with the consumption of ultra processed foods of say 15% or 20%.
You have raised very relevant and very important questions to we have to dwell in. Yeah.
We have to do it fundamentally correct. Yeah, still, I would not say you close down the factories, but if people want to eat, let them eat, but don't market them. Do not allow promotion so that it continues to increase. And slowly, if they don't find a market and they have good market in minimally processed, for example, a minimally processed product gets market, then the company will think about making profit in the minimally processed area.
Okay.
The question is you have to give incentive to the minimally processed food and tax the ultra processed products.
Nicely said. And now that we have 2 minutes left, I would like to ask you to quickly provide a message to India and the listeners what actions they can take. And in the meantime, I would like to invite Shashi to join the call and say a few words.
Sure. I will say, for me, the one is that till we get the regulations right, people should start reading the labels if they buy a ultra processed food or a pre-packaged food product. And they check the label for sugar, salt, and fat content. Second, if your consumption is already more than 5 to 10%, I would say start reducing it, 1% every month, so that by 6 months to 1 year, you are get rid of it. And one of the key areas which I would advise people not to buy any food product, which is advertised on any medium, except real whole foods like pistachio. Now, these are unprocessed. You do see their advertisement occasionally. All other products which are, making you feel healthy, making you feel happy, making you feel loved, making you feel conveying love, all that is alive and do not buy advertised food product. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arun,
Thank
for
you.
coming and sharing with us your knowledge. I think you are a big activist in the field of making people aware of the dangers of processed food, the label reading in breastfeeding, and a lot of other activities. So thank you, and we'll keep our collaboration on for all future events. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.